Hey gamers, before you drop your hard-earned cash on every new game you see, why not try games before you buy them? At Redbox, rent all the hottest titles, like Star Wars Battlefront for just $3 a night. Download the app or visit redbox.com to find a location near you. Terms and conditions apply. See redbox.com for details.
Here's what's coming up on the First Take podcast. The Pats escaped New York with a win, but did the Giants hand them the victory? Plus, Skip weighs in on his Cowboys dropping their 7th straight game. And how much blame does Aaron Rodgers deserve for Green Bay's 3-game skid? That and so much more coming up on the podcast. Welcome into First Take. Molly Karam here with you, holding things down in Bristol solo. Skip Bayless joins us from New York City. Stephen A is in Cleveland. Hello, gentlemen.
What's up? What's up? Good morning. How y'all doing?
I think it is a great day. I had a great day watching pro football yesterday, especially that 4:30 game. You two might be somewhat aware of it.
Well, I know you didn't say anything about the 1 o'clock game, but I certainly did.
Touche.
Of course you did. Let's talk about that one and get right into it. Patriots-Giants never disappoints. Well, disappointed me. The Pats, Stephen Gostkowski made his 30th straight field goal so clutch, especially last night, making a 54-yarder with 1 second remaining, keeping the Patriots unbeaten with a 27-26 victory over the New York Football Giants. Stephen A., did New England win or did New York lose?
To be quite honest with you, I thought the New York Giants lost the game. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Patriots because they're undefeated. They're clearly the best team in football right now, although there are those who would give that edge to Cincinnati. I don't know why. They need to win a playoff game and show me something beyond the regular season for me to give them those kind of props. So I would give it to New England right now. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no question in my mind. But when you look at the myriad of mistakes that the New York Giants made yesterday afternoon, I don't think there's any question that it comes down to the Giants gave this football game away. Certainly when you look at Landon Collins and dropping that interception of Brady, that definitely was a problem. You look at the Odell Beckham Jr. touchdown and how he came down with the second foot, but you got to hold on to that football. That didn't happen, okay? You look at the situation where, yeah, that was a beautiful throw from Brady to Amendola on a 4th and 10, but damn it was 4th and 10. And if you're the New York Giants and you've got the game on the line, you simply can't allow that to happen, particularly when you played the kind of game that you played. And even as we show the highlights of the previous interception that I made, that was not. Your Collins, you got to hold on to the football. You know good and well that you're going to come down on that hard turf. You know it's going to hurt. But before you sit up there and you know, you just let go of the ball, you got to hold on and cradle that football and just fall and take the shot that you know is inevitably coming instead of trying to catch it with one hand. I mean, that was just ill-advised as far as I'm concerned. Then when you take into account history, think about the brain lock that the Giants suffered against the Cowboys in Week 1. Think about the mistakes they made in losing a 4th-quarter lead to the Falcons in Game 2. Think about some of the things they've done already this year. Think about the mistakes that they made against New Orleans in the process of giving up 52 points and 7 touchdown passes to Drew Brees. That was still a winnable game for them, and somehow, some way they blew it. This is a team, the New York Giants, easily could have been right now 8-2 instead of 5-5. But there were at least 3 games, arguably 4, that they have absolutely positively blown. If this was one game, then you'd give even more credit to the New England Patriots. But the fact that this has happened to the Giants in some way, shape, form, or fashion over and over and over again this season shows a pattern. And the pattern is when the game wanes and stuff gets tight, their palms get sweaty. They don't seem to be who they're supposed to be. And when you're going up against New England, you can't afford for that to happen. The Giants blew this game yesterday, but obviously you give credit and props to New England because Brady is Brady.
You know what? You just made a whole lot of decent points that amount to nothing, to just a big old hill of beans, because the final score was Patriots by 1 point. I told you it would be Patriots by 1 point.
You did.
And glory be, all I care about is Tom Brady beat Eli Manning by 1 point. I don't care if it was by a half a point or a third of a point or a quarter of a point. The Patriots won. Brady finally beat the Eli curse late in the game. I don't care how it happened, why it happened, all the spilled milk that you talk about. It's all water and milk under the bridge for me, because I walked away with a 1 point win for my guy, Tom Brady. And I agree with you, Stephen A. My guy, Tom Brady, was a little lucky. Maybe he was a lot lucky in the fourth quarter. In fact, he put himself in position to create 4 turnovers for the New York Football Giants, who I remind you, as I told both of you on Friday, the Giants led the league in takeaways coming into that game. The Giants had the league-leading turnover differential coming into that game. So the balls were in their hands. Landon Collins, you're right. He should have hung on. Game would have been over. Brady lost 1 fumble, could have lost another one. Giants couldn't recover. Patriots did recover. Obviously, Brady threw the interception. It was a bad throw, a little late to LaFell. It almost looked like a Malcolm Butler-style interception at the goal line. Looked like it might cost the Patriots, but it did not, because Tom Brady got the ball back with 1 minute and 47 seconds to go. Now, should your Giants have just given in to the situation, 1st and goal at the 5, with, 2:05 left in the game, and run, and just kick the field goal and let the clock run a little bit more? They could have. They could have run the clock down to, instead of 147, I don't know, maybe 115 or 120 when Brady got the ball back. But you know what? I admired Tom Coughlin for saying, let's go for the kill. Let's make Tom Brady have to go the length of the field for a touchdown instead of just a field goal. And listen, Eli made the throw, as you point out, to Beckham. It's in his hands. It's a sweet throw. And Malcolm Butler, who I thought played the game of his life, knocked the ball out of Odell Beckham Jr.'s hands. It was a great play by the cornerback, and not a bad play by the quarterback or the receiver to me. It was just a great play by the cornerback. And then Eli missed Odell. He came open on the 2nd goal play, wide open for a touchdown, and he missed it. He just didn't see him, threw it quickly outside to Dwayne Harris, and just made a bad choice. Then he made a good choice to stay in bounds when he rolled out on 3rd down to run a little bit more clock. But again, they went for the kill, and they didn't kill Tom Brady, because he's hard to kill late in the game. And I got to tell you, Brady was all-time clutch, and so was Danny Amendola. He had a partner in clutch time, did Tom Brady. Amendola caught the 4th and 10 play that you're talking about. I know the Giants should have covered it better, but he hung on for 12 yards. Then he hung on for 11 yards more. And on the key play of the game, the little sweet spin that he made out of a couple of tackles to get about 5 or 6 more yards to set up the 54-yard field goal to win it. Clutch, clutch, clutch. It just felt to me like this year, this time, this is Tom Brady's year. This is the year of Brady, as he tries to deflate every opponent to get even with the NFL for Deflategate. If you put the ball in his hands this year, this time against Eli, that was the outcome. I loved it because I thought justice prevailed in the end. Thank you very much.
Well, I will tell you this. I love how you say it's much ado about nothing, that all that matters is the outcome, because I can point to a myriad of discussions that we've had, covering and spanning a multitude of subjects where all that mattered was not the final score to you. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I certainly will remember it with future topics to come. I can promise you that. You won't get away with that. But in this particular instance, we both picked the Patriots to win, but you were right on the money. You picked them to win 29-28, so you almost had the score right down to the number. So I give you major props for that. But it's also, well, I'm not you. I'm not shy about giving you props when it's deserved. It's just that it's really deserved. But let's get back to the issue at hand. When we talk about the start of the fourth quarter, Giants recover a Brady fumble. You're on New England's 31-yard line. You don't score a single point. That's pretty damn pathetic. And when you look at it from that perspective, you just find yourself looking at the New York Giants, and it's flabbergasting as to why they will come up with these mistakes, particularly at the most inopportune of times. But I would like to remind you of this. It's not the first time Brady has beaten Eli Manning in the regular season. A matter of fact, it's a pretty recurring role for him. Where he has a problem beating Eli Manning, is in the Super Bowl. That's where he has a problem. So just keep that in mind, as we move forward. Not that I'm projecting that the Giants will go to the Super Bowl, because I certainly can't see that happening. But in the event that they luck up again, because they did have a 9-7 record when they went to the Super Bowl one of those years and they beat Brady, just keep in mind those little tidbit of facts. It might have actually been better, Skip, for you if Brady had lost yesterday, just in case they meet them in the Super Bowl. The fact that they won yesterday, the likelihood is that if they were to meet again, it wouldn't happen twice. Just want to point that out.
Nope. I want to point out the last time that these two met in the regular season was in Foxborough. Remember that? About 5 seasons ago.
Won that, the Giants won that game, though. I think the Giants won that game,
Yeah, Giants won that game on a late Eli touchdown pass. It was only 1 yard to Jake Ballard, but still, Eli trumped Brady in that game. So it was 3 in a row late, Eli trumping Brady, out-Bradying Brady. That's why this was so huge psychologically to Brady. And by the way, if we want to speak of luck, how lucky were your Giants that Julian Edelman, Brady's obvious favorite receiver, his most trusted receiver, the best rapport, he's gone after 1 quarter. Are you kidding me? That's a huge break for the New York Giants. And how about Deion Lewis, who is the new Shane Vereen? I think he's even better than Shane Vereen. Obviously, this is the first game they had to play without poor little Deion, who's gone for the season. And by the way, Shane Vereen is still alive and very well and kicking for the New York Giants and played a role yesterday. So, again, that was advantage Giants. Jamie Collins, the best playmaker on New England's defense, could not go yesterday. So that was advantage Giants. And I'm going to say it one more time. Tom Brady continues to operate behind the most decimated, inexperienced offensive line in all of pro football and keeps getting away with it, keeps surviving. That's advantage Giants. I'm sorry. I think there was a lot of luck going the other way, too.
Okay. That's fair enough. That's fair.
Thank you.
All right. It might be Brady's year, but it certainly wasn't the Manning's day. We'll get into Peyton's woes in just a minute. And more bad news for the Giants as Victor Cruz is officially done for the season, having surgery on his left calf. Obviously, they also lost their center in that game as well. Sunday night football. Carson Palmer and the Arizona Cardinals moved 3 games ahead in the NFC West with a 39-32 victory over the Seahawks. Late game issues for Seattle, once again blowing a 4th quarter lead and losing another heartbreaker. So the Seahawks are now 4-5, as I just mentioned, 3rd in the division, 3 games behind Arizona. Skip, are the Seahawks done?
Molly, Stephen A., I have still so much respect for Seattle's defense. I still have so much respect for the weapons on Seattle's offense that I am not going to definitively state right here, right now, that they are done. But I will say, I think they're done. I will say they look like they're done. And I say that only, Stephen A., because of the way they keep losing. Once again, another loss, the 5th loss of the year. And in all 5 losses, Seattle has led in the 4th quarter. Really? That's the shocking stat of the year in pro football to me, that Seattle's defense failed to protect 5 4th quarter leads. And I remind you that Detroit lost, they beat Detroit, obviously. Detroit got robbed at Seattle, or Seattle right now should be 3-6. So what happened again last night? Actually, that defense rose and shone. The Legion of Boom boomed. And Carson Palmer strip sacked twice, 2 easy touchdowns, and all of a sudden Seattle goes ahead 29-25. And then what happened? Right on cue, as we've seen all year long. This is even in Seattle. The Legion of Boom turned right back into the Legion of Doom, D-O-O-M, Doom. And all of a sudden, here came Carson Palmer, not phased at all, 83 yards, touchdown. Then little Andre Ellington gets loose, 48 yards, touchdown. And all of a sudden, it's 39-29 visiting team ball game. I've never seen anything quite like that before. And again, Arizona looked like the better team to me all night long, except for those 2 early 4th quarter turnovers. Arizona piled up 451 yards. Arizona was 8 of 17 on 3rd down. That's almost 50% against the Legion of Doomed. And the Seattle offense, Stephen A., I don't know what's happening, but Russell Wilson is really struggling to make third down plays. He's not making those kind of plays. They were 1 for 8 on third down last night. QBR scale of 0 to 100 for Russell Wilson was 14 last night. So they're not getting enough playmaking from Russell Wilson, and they are not getting any playmaking late from the defense. So I will definitively state that they feel like and look like they're done.
Skip Bayless, I have to admit to you that I'm 100% with you on there, and this is my Super Bowl pick, as we all know. I didn't just pick them to go to the Super Bowl. I picked them to win the Super Bowl. It looks wrong right now. I believe that in order for Seattle to make the playoffs, they're going to have to go 6-1 over their final 7 games in order to pull this out, Skip Bayless. They play Pittsburgh, they play at Minnesota, they play at Baltimore, they play at Arizona. They've got St. Louis on the schedule as well, along with the 49ers and Browns. I think they'll beat the 49ers and Browns, obviously, and I think they'll beat St. Louis in Seattle. But I got to bet on them beating the Steelers and winning at least 2 of those 3 road games at Arizona, at Baltimore, and I'm trying to remember the last one that I said. I got to worry about them winning 2 of those 3 games in order for them to make the playoffs. And right now it's looking bleak. I never dreamed that the day would come where I'd see the Legion of Boom surrender 39 points. I never thought I'd see that happening. And here's the thing that's so perplexing about it, Skip. Their quickness on defense is so impressive, and they hit you too. And Avril played like a man possessed last night. He was sensational defensively. He was the one that strip sacked Carson Palmer on that first sack in the second half, stripped him, and KJ Wright picked it up and ran it to about the 2-yard line, okay? And then Wright obviously strip sacked Carson Palmer the second go-round, and it was returned into the end zone for a touchdown. That defense, at least at intervals, was playing lights out. But I see too many communication issues. I see too much looking at one another. And I see a coach in Pete Carroll, along with their defensive coordinator, that doesn't seem to have the same level of institutional control that existed last year with Quinn and Carroll spearheading this defense. I really, really will go back by reiterating my point, Skip. That Super Bowl loss and the manner in which it took place, I think, has had such a residual impact that the impact has been devastating. Because I think that this is a team that's just, I look at their talent. Think about it, Skip, with the exception of Corey Williams on one corner. Everywhere you look at this Seattle defense, tell me what's not impressive. Their corners, their safeties, their linebackers, their defensive linemen, the speed with which they get after the quarterback, the viciousness with which they're willing to hit you and are capable of hitting you. Skip, there's not one level of personnel on the defensive side of the ball that I would change for Seattle. I look at them and I don't see ability, athleticism, and skill being their Achilles heel. I see trust or lack thereof from one another, with no leadership to look towards on the sidelines, because they don't trust one another. And it started when Pete Carroll made the worst call in Super Bowl history, maybe NFL history, with the dumbest call on the planet by not giving Marshawn Lynch the football. And I contend, yet again, Skip, that his reasons for wanting to give the ball to Russell Wilson instead of Marshawn Lynch is up for grabs, because you've got some people inside that locker room that feel he didn't want Marshawn Lynch to be the hero. He wanted Russell Wilson to be the hero. And it's a level of trust that is sorely lacking. On the offensive side of the ball, let's face reality. It's 2 problems that they have here. Basically 3. You only gave it to Marshawn Lynch 8 times. The guy averaged more than 5 yards a carry yesterday and scored a touchdown. And he was on the ball. You know you got a problem when Marshawn Lynch beast mode is on the sideline getting in guys' face to get them motivated to do their job. I never saw that before. Then you look at Jimmy Graham. There still seems to be something absolutely positively missing. And then last but not least, they can't protect Russell Wilson. Skip Bayless, this dude was running for his life half the game. He was running for his life. So I look at it from the perspective that they seem to be in a world of trouble. I'm going to wait another week before I decide. I expect them to beat San Francisco. But right now, just looking at them, in order to make the playoffs with Minnesota and Green Bay in the North, with Atlanta and Carolina in the South, with one of the teams having to come from the East, all right, and Arizona clearly going to be the team coming from the West. You have to go 6-1. I don't believe a 9-7 record is going to get you a wild card spot. It'll get somebody in the NFC East the division crown, but it's not going to get you the wild card spot in the NFC. You got to go at least 10-6, which means they've got to win 6 of their next 7. I'm not sure they can do it based on what I'm seeing. Maybe they'll come together because they realize their postseason aspirations are on the line. It's on the respirator. But that's what it's going to take. Because right now, Skip, I don't see ability being a problem. I see a lack of trust in a coach who betrayed their trust by making the dumbest call in Super Bowl history. That's what I see.
I am very with you on all of your insight into this team that you did pick to get to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. It feels like dissension is growing sort of under the surface here. And it started from that last play of the Super Bowl. There's a distrust, a mistrust of the head coach. And the new coordinator seems not to have the ability to unify the defense, to keep everybody on the same page, because I'm with you. Every other play, it seems like they're pointing fingers at each other. And I must say, Richard Sherman's not playing at quite the level he played at the last, really, 3 years, where he gives up plays every once in a while. He gave up the touchdown pass to Floyd when he bid a little bit on the underneath route, thinking that maybe he could get a quick pick. And they're all trying to make plays. They overreact occasionally. And they're not as unified on the field and off the field as they used to be. So it's starting to teeter, starting to come apart. And I agree with you looking down the schedule, even all the way to the year-ender at Arizona. I'm not sure they can win that game. In fact, I'll say they won't win that game, depending on where Arizona is in how it's clinched or not. But it's looking like Arizona is clearly superior to Seattle. And then, to your point, as you watch Minnesota emerge in the north, and then you watch Atlanta still teetering but hanging in at 6-3 in the south. Well, these are wild card possibilities, so it's going to put a lot of pressure on Seattle to get it in big gear, to get on a roll here. And when I look down that schedule, I'm with you. There's some losable games. By the way, they have to go to Minnesota in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks.
Yep.
So yeah, and it'll be December the 6th out in the cold.
And Pittsburgh's the week before that.
I don't know. You got it. So these are hard games for a team that's not right, that's not making the plays on either offense or defense. And I agree with you. They keep putting the game all in Russell Wilson's hands because he's won so many before. He's been very clutch in the past, but it's not benefiting Marshawn at all. They're taking the game completely out of his hands for the most part and putting it in the quarterback's hands. And it doesn't feel right to me either.
Well, Skip, the one thing that I want to point out, let's get back to Richard Sherman for a quick second. Skip, I don't think he's playing bad. I think he's playing pretty damn good. You're right that there are plays here and there that he seems to be giving up, but it's usually a communication. Like with the touchdown pass, he sort of cheated a little bit because one of the receivers for Arizona cut in front of him, and he saw that he was open. So he thought Carson Palmer was going to the guy in front of him instead of back of him, and he wasn't covered. So even though they gave up the touchdown, he still found himself looking around because he's like, why do I have 2 men in my area, that I have to cover? Where were one of you guys? And so I think when you look at Richard Sherman in terms of doing his job, he's doing his job. Here's the critique of Richard Sherman that I think we all need to point out. And Richard Sherman needs to realize this. Richard Sherman didn't just get his money because he's one of the gifted corners in the game. Richard Sherman got his money because his brashness, his bravado, how he, as much as it may have been a turnoff for the opposition and some media critics, his behavior sparked and galvanized a lot of guys around him. It wasn't just Cam Chancellor and that leadership ability about guys attacking their fears, like he told me they were all trained to do, and all of them admitted when we were at the ESPYs a couple of years ago. This is also about a guy like Richard Sherman who would get in guys' face, do his job, and literally motivate the Wagners and the Thomases of the world, and the list went on of guys around him, getting guys fired up. What I see right now is a Richard Sherman who's still very good. I don't see any dissipation. I don't see any sliding of the skills or anything like that. What I see is a guy that's doing his job, but that's all, as opposed to galvanizing dudes to do their job. And Seattle's success wasn't just predicated on their abilities, their skills, their knowledge, etc. It was predicated on their ability to get the next man towards them ready and pumped to do their job. I don't see that now. You might see it when they make a play, when they actually do something. But I don't see it when they're trying to inspire others to do something. There is something missing. And I do not blame the players. I blame Pete Carroll and Darrell Bevell. They made that call. If they had lost the Super Bowl because they gave the ball to beast mode, none of this would be an issue, Skip. We gave it to beast mode himself, Marshawn Lynch. Take us to the promised land. They could have lived with that, Skip. But the coaches took a Super Bowl championship away from them. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't know how you get trust back when you look at a coach and you feel like he gave away a Super Bowl because of something other than what your identity was about. Their identity was the Legion of Boom and beast mode. And he wanted Russell Wilson to be the hero for some reason. It's costing him.
Okay, I hear you on your Richard Sherman points. Those are fair. On your last play of the Super Bowl call, I told you that the next day. I disagree with your premise on that, but where you're right is I think all those players you're talking about, especially on defense, they all agree with you. So it's a huge issue that still lingers under the surface. It's still festering under the surface for this team. So I get all that. Last quick point, Molly, just let me throw this in. We've talked about Seattle. I got to give some props to Arizona. We
Yes.
did not pick. Yeah, hey, listen, we both picked Seattle to win this game. I said on Friday, right at the end of the show, Arizona hasn't had one game that really impressed me because all their the people they'd beaten were all under 500, and then they had lost, a couple of games I didn't think they should have lost. So my point is, last night, that was impressive. Carson Palmer is still the best deep thrower in all of pro football, and now that he's healthy, we're seeing that come to fruition again.
He's 13-2 as a starter. They're 5-5 without him in the lineup, Skip. We got to give him props. Larry Fitzgerald took that hit. He got right back up like it was nobody's business. Andre Ellington ran for that 48-yard touchdown. Honey Badger had a big-time interception, and what an exceptional playmaker he is. We all know that. But in the end, it also comes down to 14 penalties for 131 yards on behalf of Seattle's defense. And I'm here to tell you, Skip, if you throw it to the sideline and it's an incompletion, you still got 2 more plays to go in the Super Bowl. They could have eaten that. To take that kind of risk and to take the ball out of beast mode's hands, it definitely resonates with those players. Whether they admit it or not, they don't trust the coaches the way that they used to.
Jameis Winston scored on a 1-yard quarterback keeper with less than a minute on the clock, giving Tampa Bay a 10-6 victory that extended the Dallas Cowboys' longest losing streak since 1989 to 7 games. On the Cowboys' last possession of the game, Des Bryant looked to be pushed in the back but made no effort for the ball that resulted in the game-clinching interception.
I felt like I adjusted back quickly very well. I'm thinking down the field, and I think it just threw me off a little bit. But either way, that's what I perfect. That's what I do. I still should have tried. It just threw me off a little bit, but it's okay. They didn't call it. The attitude that I have, I'm supposed to try my best to fight through situations like that, and I didn't because I was expecting something. And that's on me.
Skip, how much of this loss is on Dez?
Stephen A. Smith, I have to admit publicly, I was so disappointed in Des Bryant at the end of that game yesterday. In fact, I was crushed over it because I thought he was going to make the play that would win that game to get my Dallas Cowboys to next week at Miami when Tony Romo returns. And look, because at the end of last year, I called Dez Bryant the best receiver in football. And because all through the offseason, I called him an emerging team leader, and I campaigned for him to get his money, as did you. And he did get his $70 million, which he richly deserved. Because of that, I'm going to hold him most responsible for that loss to Jameis Winston and company at Tampa Bay. Stephen A., I said Friday, it's time for Dez to learn to channel his rage and his frustration about over all this losing into playmaking instead of into tirades against the media over things that should not matter to Dez Bryant. So let's go back to 4 minutes left in this game at Tampa yesterday. 3rd and short, and they throw it up the field. Matt Castle actually threw a good ball. I don't really believe in Matt Castle, but he threw a good ball right into the hands of Dez Bryant up the sideline for about 14 yards, and Dez cold flat dropped it. That would have been a first down. That would allow Dallas to eat a little more of that clock, maybe at least punt Jameis deeper into his territory. But as it stood, they had to punt right away from there, and Jameis got the ball at the Tampa Bay 44-yard line. Now let's go to the end of the game. Late throw into the end zone by Matt Castle. Made a great throw. Perfectly positioned deep ball. You can call it a Hail Mary. I thought it was a Hail Dez, because a year ago, Dez puts that ball in his back pocket. He owns that ball. He posts up a safety. He's got a safety, McDougal on him, Bradley McDougal on him. He posts him. He bodies him. He waits until the perfect point. He high points that ball, goes up, snatches it out of the sky, and Dallas wins the game. I have no idea what got into him yesterday. I'm not saying he didn't try. He seemed to lose the ball in flight for a second. He veered off path. He put himself in position for Bradley McDougal to get away with a little shove in the back. I would not have called it. I would not have flagged it, because it's a jump ball with the game on the line. Let them play. Dez is bigger. Dez is stronger. All I know, if I'm going to give him any excuse or break here, Stephen A., maybe he can't jump off that surgically repaired foot. That's all I can figure out. Maybe he's afraid. Maybe it's just too sore to launch off that foot. That's all I got right now, because otherwise he just looked lost. Lost the ball, lost his emotion, seemed defeated. I have no idea what didn't get in to Dez Bryant. I thought it was going to be Dallas's game. It was not. So in the end, as unfair as it might be, that loss is mostly on Dez Bryant.
Well, Skip Bayless, let me say this to you. I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm going to try and be, if it is at all possible, I'm going to try to be a little bit more expansive about Dez and the Cowboys than even you are in this particular situation. I'm going to separate a couple of things, all right? When we look at the pass, the drop pass, he dropped the pass. It's not like he tried to drop the pass. He jumped up for it. It hit him. He should have caught the pass. Elite receivers catch those passes. But similar to Calvin Johnson and him messing up that onside kick against Green Bay, and we'll get into that a little bit later, Dez Bryant dropped the pass he should have caught. It's just that simple. There's nothing more to it than that. When you look at him, that jump ball, that jump, that it wasn't a Hail Mary, as you called it, a Hail Dez, because it was up there for him to get it. I completely agree with you. And I'm not making that call. Let him play and decide the game. Yes, he did get nudged in the back. So what? It's not the first time it happened to Dez. It wouldn't be the last. That's just the first time we didn't see him really go up for it the way he normally does. If it's his foot, it's his foot. If it's something else, it involves a more expansive discussion. At the end of the day, what this comes down to me, Skip, I think it's a situation, it's a combo of a couple of things. I think the drop pass may have elevated his level of frustration that was already brewing due to the multitude of things that have involved not just him, but the Dallas Cowboys throughout this season and throughout this losing streak that is now the worst since 1989. I think it's gotten to them excessively so. I think they're getting asked these questions every week. None of the questions are pleasant. The post-game locker room, the practices, the meetings, everything is getting harder and harder, a bit more arduous, because when you're losing, that's what comes with it. So I think that has a role in it. I also think that to some degree, whether Dez is willing to admit it or not, you have some people that looked at him, talked about how out of control he was, reminisced about past transgressions because of it. Not only that, it was in the immediate aftermath of a Greg Hardy, which is something that Des Bryant has to watch out for, because we know that Greg Hardy is a problem totally different than anybody else right now, and that's simply the situation. Him going off on the sideline, I don't think it's a reason for everybody to get into Greg Hardy because he was arguing with a teammate on the sideline for a brief second. Let's make sure we don't nitpick to the degree that we're monitoring every little thing the guy does to say he has a problem. We know he's got a problem, but let's not use that as an excuse to highlight it. But in the end, if you're Des Bryant, you're surrounded by all of this. And I think that when you're on that play, in that end zone, your zest, your passion, your desire to go for it, the way we know Des usually has that desire, I think that dissipated a little bit because of all the things that he's been going through, and it showed itself, if at all possible, on that particular end zone play. In the end, so because of that, I would look at this game and I would give Des some responsibility for the loss, which is something that he's willing to stomach. But Skip, I got to tell you, I'm getting really sick and tired of it just stopping with the players or us going all the way upstairs to Jerry Jones. Isn't Jason Garrett a head coach? Isn't a head coach in the National Football League supposed to be able to stop some level of bleeding? They have now lost 7 straight. Skip Bayless, no matter how much I get on Tony Romo, I know Tony Romo is great. I know Tony Romo can play, all right? But tell me you 2-5 without Tony Romo. Tell me you 3-4 without Tony Romo. 0-7? Really? Darren McFadden didn't run the football well yesterday, but he had a 152-yard game. He had a couple to a few 100-plus yard games since Tony Romo has been out. The defense has played better since Tony Romo has been out. Cole Beasley has played well since Tony Romo has been out. Des Bryant returned since Tony Romo has been out. You're Jason Garrett. You can't find a way to win a couple of these games? I mean, at some point in time, even though he's the ultimate puppet for Jerry Jones because he just echoes verbally whatever Jerry Jones says or tells him to say, doesn't it get to a point where we look at Jason Garrett? Skip Bayless, I didn't realize this. I had totally forgotten about this till yesterday. Do you realize that Jason Garrett was asked by Jerry Jones to fire his own brother and did so? There are plenty of coaches.
He did.
There are plenty of coaches in the National Football League, Skip Bayless. You come to them to say fire their brother, they'll tell you hell no. You know, you fire me. I'm not doing that, okay? It's not him, it's me.
Okay.
But, Jason, I mean, at some point, I'm just using that to highlight, at some point, Skip, it ain't just about a play or a player. It is about the supposed leader of the team. It's supposed to be Jason Garrett, the head coach. Oh, you asleep at the wheel totally because Tony Romo is out? Come on, man. Come on now. Somebody got to look at Jason Garrett. I'm sorry. Somebody got to look at him.
I blasted Jason Garrett a week ago, and I am completely with you on this. The Dallas Cowboys, my Cowboys, have come close, have been in position to win 6 of those 7 games. And they've lost, as you point out, and everybody knows, all 7. Well, I think 6 times they had a chance. They had some fourth quarter chance to win 6 of those games. They have quietly, slowly, but surely learned to lose close games. They have gotten very comfortable with losing close games with no urgency, no retribution from the head coach, no fear of the head coach's wrath, because the head coach has no wrath. The head coach is a Stepford coach. I don't know if you remember the Stepford Wives movie, but he's like a robot. It's like Jerry Jones created him in some laboratory or had him created, and he is just a puppet who just gazes into the distance and keeps slapping the players on the back as they come off the field. Keeps clapping for his players no matter what happens, and they don't feel any urgency or fear from the head coach. Can you imagine what Jimmy Johnson would have done to this team? And again, Jimmy had a terrible year. He would have they would have thrown fits of rage that would have made Dez look like a choir boy, and the team would be afraid of losing, and somebody would have stepped up somewhere and made one play to win one game to reverse the tide of losing. This team is very comfortable with losing. This team looks at each other and says, well, Here we go again, and it's going to be okay because our head coach will slap us all on the back and clap for us when we come off the field. That's all I got right now, so it's up to Romo to save the day because Jason Garrett is a non-coach. He's a non-factor in this equation.
Skip, I want to say this. I'll close my comments by saying this. Again, we're not completely absolving Dez or any other player. We know that, Dez knows he could have done better yesterday. It just is what it is. He's got a lot going on, and we'll just leave it at that. But I will tell you this, Skip. If a miracle happened, and obviously I'm not talking about this season because Dallas, as far as I'm concerned, is done. But if we're talking about moving forward in the seasons and the years to come, and Dallas lucks up, and obviously a miracle happens and they win a Super Bowl, I don't care to see the head coach lofted like, they're carrying him on their shoulders like they do Super Bowl champion coaches. As far as I'm concerned, Skip, I don't know what he's doing because to me, I don't get it. I don't get, you can't win a game without Tony Romo. A game? Not one game? I mean, come on now. At some point in time, it's your responsibility to find this is football. Injuries are a part of the game. That's not applicable to Tony Romo. If this were anybody else, we'd be talking about coaches on a hot seat or coaches getting fired. This guy, other than last year, the best that he has done with the Cowboys were 8-8 seasons. That's it. The last year's 12-4 was the only mulligan, and that was because of an MVP caliber year that Tony Romo was having, and an MVP caliber year that DeMarco Murray was having. And even though they should not have let go of DeMarco Murray, they have plenty of weapons on both sides of the ball to prevent themselves from going 0-7 without Tony Romo. If Jason Garrett can do his job. I don't know enough about football to dissect the intricacies of what the head coaching responsibilities are. I'm a results-oriented dude, bottom line, because even if I did know, they tell me I'm lying and they deny it anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. But the results are something they can't deny. I'm tired of Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, Tony Romo, Des Bryant, Greg Hardy, or somebody like that being held accountable. Jason Garrett is responsible. He's the head coach. And damn it, he ain't doing his job. Somebody needs to say something.
Okay, last quick point. Are you sure that a miracle can't happen this year in this NFC East thanks to your Giants and those Eagles? And now here come the Redskins. Are you sure it's over in the East? Because I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, but it just looks that way. You lose 7 in a row. I find it hard to believe that you all of a sudden come back and win 7 in a row. You see what I'm saying? You're not going to win the division at 8-8, in my opinion. You got to go at least 9-7, which means that the Dallas Cowboys would have to win every game once Tony Romo returns. I can't see that happening. I can't see that happening. I don't mind being wrong because I don't mind the Dallas Cowboys winning a few games and then teasing us until the last game of the season or some big playoff moment and then collapsing. But I just don't see that happening. I don't see them winning 7 in a row.
Are you a gamer on a budget? Then try games before you buy them at Redbox for just $3 a night. Rent this year's hottest titles, like Star Wars Battlefront, to feed your gaming habit. Download the app or visit redbox.com to find a location near you. Terms and conditions apply. See redbox.com for details.
Meanwhile, yesterday, Peyton Manning continued his assault on the record books, becoming an all-time leader in passing yards, but he didn't get to enjoy that milestone, playing arguably the worst game of his career. He threw 4 picks and was benched in the third as the Broncos dropped their 2nd straight. Here's Kubiak and Peyton after the game.
Probably should have made a decision not to play him in the game, and the reason I needed to make that probably a tough decision there.
Disappointing. Did not play. Made some really bad plays and just put our team in a really bad position, starting with the first series, turning the ball over. Giving them great field position, and just seemed like that got me off to a bad start and never could find any type of rhythm or continuity out there.
League sources are telling our Adam Schefter that Peyton Manning has a torn plantar fascia in his right foot. Some Broncos players said it was difficult for Manning to even walk last week. Stephen A., I hate that I have to ask this. Is Peyton done?
Yes, he is. After this season, not during this season. I think that he'll be back at some point. I think that he'll get himself healthier. He will definitely look better because the truth is he can't look much worse. 5 for 20, 35 yards, 4 interceptions. It was the most horrific performance that I've ever seen Peyton Manning put forth. And to be quite honest with you, Skip, everybody's bringing up the plantar fasciitis that he is suffering from. Our very own Adam Schefter revealed that to be the case. Folks can go ahead and use that as an excuse so much as they want to. I don't. And the reason that I don't is that no disrespect to any human being out there who is disabled. I mean, no disrespect towards them whatsoever. Peyton Manning, on his knees or in a wheelchair, could throw the football on most nights better than 5 for 20 for 35 yards. Okay? That injury alone is not the reason that Peyton Manning looked that awful. Peyton Manning, age, attrition, getting beat down, etc. He's not what he used to be. 9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions this year. He's not himself. It doesn't take away from his greatness. It doesn't take away from the level of greatness that he has displayed for us over the last 17 to 18 years. It doesn't negate the fact that he's a first ballot future Hall of Famer. It doesn't negate the fact that he's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play, or that, as you call him, he's the greatest regular season quarterback to have ever played the game of football. None of that takes away anything from the greatness of Peyton Manning. It's just that Father Time has come knocking. And even though I still think that he has the ability, once this plantar fasciitis heals, to resurrect himself and get going and be more than formidable. And he has the potential to give us flashes of greatness because he has that much greatness in him. I think it's clear that this is it for him. This is the last run. I don't believe that we will see Peyton Manning back after this season. I think it's over.
I hear all the points you just made. I'm not sure I agree with you on this one. The problem that we're going to have a hard time debating is just how hurt he is. I'm not his doctor. I'm not a doctor. So we're shooting a little bit in the dark here. But I will tell you this. I'm going to give him a break for the plantar fascia, because anyone who suffered from merely plantar fasciitis, just inflammation of the plantar fascia, for those who don't know, it runs underneath your foot.
Yep.
Once it gets inflamed, I've had it from running marathons. Any runner's had it, probably in some varying degree.
Right.
You can't walk. You can't get out of bed in the morning on it. And if it was frayed a few weeks back, they said it really got worse at Indy. Then if it actually started to tear, man, that's a big problem for a 39-year-old who was already suffering. I remind you, Stephen A., he was on the injury report for a shoulder and for ribs. So his body is betraying him at age 39. It's Kobe-esque. It's what Kobe's battling with, all these big injuries Kobe's had to fight through. His body won't stay healthy. Peyton's obviously playing a more violent game than Kobe, can't stay healthy. But again, I'll do whatever case scenario you want to make this, best or worse. It's possible that Peyton's done for the rest of this year, but does that mean he's done for next year? I don't know that. It sounds like he's been battling through all sorts of various degrees of injuries all year long. And again, if you've got plantar fasciitis alone, it would be hard to push off. It would be hard to get any velocity on your throws. And again, if Peyton Manning at 39 is just throwing only with his upper body and no legs, I can see where he'd lose a whole lot of velocity. So I'm going to give him a break on that score. Again, the year has been pretty miserable, but I keep reminding you, there have been about 3 fourth quarters when Peyton Manning's looked pretty much like Peyton Manning. I remember the game at Kansas City. Remember the night game? Yesterday against Kansas City at home, he did not look like Peyton Manning. It was abysmal, and I thank Gary Kubiak for saying, hey, it's on me. I should have stepped up. Clearly, he knew the doctor's internal reports. He should have just said, no, I know you're Peyton Manning, but we can't risk you out there in this shape that you're in, because you're borderline unplayably hurt right now.
Well,
so they let him try, and he got embarrassed.
Well, let me lean on your expertise, Skip, in terms of what you talked about with the plantar fascia, okay? Peyton Manning is completing less than 60% of his passes for the first time since 2008. Since 2008, he's completed a minimum of 66% of his passes. All right, so whatever you want to point to as it pertains to his plantar fascia, did he come into the season with it? I have no knowledge of that. If it's something that, from my understanding, it's something that has developed over the last few weeks. But this guy is completing less than 60% of his passes. He's got nearly double the amount of interceptions than he has in touchdowns. Don't get me started with his QBR or his overall quarterback rating, because right now it just isn't that impressive. He's got a QBR skip of 45, if I remember correctly, and a completion percentage, quarterback rating rather, of 67. Now, Ronnie Hillman and C.J. Anderson being anemic from the running back position hasn't helped him. John Elway, as great of a job as I think he's done, along with Gary Kubiak, they haven't helped them by having, just acquiring Vernon Davis, because you really had no one at the tight end spot prior to Vernon Davis arriving. And obviously that was forcing Peyton Manning to put a lot of more additional pressure on himself, because with no running game, a patchwork offensive line, and no tight end to throw the ball to between the numbers, you've got to throw the ball outside the numbers, which requires some degree of velocity on a consistent basis that's not going to allow defenders to take chances. They obviously felt that they could have. They were daring Peyton Manning to take chances. So they're noticing that attrition has kicked in, that he's not 100% healthy. What I mean when I say that I'm not going to give him a pass, in no way am I questioning the legitimacy of his injury. The Manning family is first class all the way. I don't question anything about them character-wise, integrity-wise, or anything like that. I'm simply saying that no matter how injured Peyton Manning is, I'm telling you right now, with one arm tied behind his back and 3 fingers, okay, a broken thumb, whatever you want to put. I'm just making up injuries here. I'm telling you, Peyton Manning could do better than 5 for 20 for 35 yards, because he's Peyton Manning. So the fact that he had this bad of a day, I'm saying let's not just attribute it to the plantar fascia. I'm saying there's more going on here. There's the age of attrition. There's that birth certificate that keeps collecting dust. There's your body being worn down. There's the 4 neck surgeries from a few years ago. There's a multitude of things that have come into the equation that has led me to the conclusion that his time has arrived, that he will say goodbye, because I think Peyton Manning has too much pride to just hang around and be average. If he can't be great and can't be that leader you know him to be, I don't believe he's going to stick around and deal with it. Just like the more I watch Kobe right now, the more I'm convinced Kobe ain't coming back after this season. This is it.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I hear what you're saying. Again, I told you, I prefaced my comments by saying it's hard to know how hurt he was yesterday, so we're shooting in the dark there. I'm going to guess he was way more hurt than you think he was.
That's fair.
I think it was so debilitating that he shouldn't have been out there, and it was a disaster, obviously. But I will tell you, he got that team to a 3-game lead even now in its division. And I thought at times he was pretty good this year. He's better than a lot of starting quarterbacks.
He still is.
So I thought he played well enough to still think in the back of his mind, if I'm healthy, I can still play this game. Now, what happens down the stretch right now? Could he get healthy in 2 games? Can they win a couple of games or 1 game with Brock Osweiler? I have no idea. I will tell you this. Bottom line to this discussion, you had already predicted that Denver would take care of New England's unbeaten streak. Remember, at Denver in a couple of weeks.
Doesn't look good now.
I don't know. Maybe that's a break for Brady. Again, no Edelman, but now maybe no Peyton. So maybe it does look good for Tom Brady.
I'll tell you this, Brock Osweiler ain't beating New England. I promise you that.
No. I'm pretty sure that's true.
The Packers are a 2-point conversion away from tying this game. Shotgun snap. Here comes pressure. The throw is incomplete. Knocked away. He went for Adams. Knocked away. Here comes the onside try. It popped up in the air. The ball is loose, and the Packers have it. So this one will be from 52 yards for what would be a stunning victory. Kick on the way for Crosby, and it's partially blocked. And after all of that, after everything, the clock goes to 0, and the Lions have won at Lambeau.
Detroit got that monkey off their back. They had lost 24 straight on the road against Green Bay. Going into Sunday, 8 Lions players weren't even born the last time the Lions won at the Packers, but that all changed. The Pack lose their 3rd straight. Stephen A., how much is Aaron Rodgers to blame for this 3-game losing streak?
Well, definitely he has a strong level of culpability. I mean, the gloves come off. He's the reigning league MVP. He's a superstar. He's the best. He's the greatest talent at the quarterback position that I've seen in all my years of watching this game. I repeatedly say he's a bad man, but the fact of the matter is that I'm not overly impressed with what I'm seeing from him, and I don't completely blame him. But at some point in time when you're that great playing that position, you have to be able to stop the bleeding. It's one thing to lose back-to-back games to Super Bowl championship contenders in Denver and Carolina. It's another thing entirely to lose to the hapless Detroit Lions. He connects with Perillo for an 11-yard touchdown pass to bring them within 2 points. Can't convert the 2-point conversion. He felt some pressure and obviously threw the ball a little bit too early. But at the same time, Detroit was able to get a hand in the mix, and obviously Cobb and those boys couldn't pull the ball in. In the end, what it comes down to is this, however. You threw the ball 61 times. You completed 35 of your passes. You did not throw an interception, but your offense was still relatively anemic, which is why you ended up only scoring 16 points on the afternoon. I was disgusted with Mason Crosby because what kind of a field goal kick was that when you're in position to win a game? I mean, that's just pathetic, to be quite honest with you. If I remember correctly, Skip, I'm watching the game. I didn't see it blocked. If it was blocked, I certainly couldn't tell. I saw Randall Cobb drop a pass. I saw Jones drop a pass. I didn't see Devontae Adams capable of getting open. Apparently some stat that, the NFL Countdown crew put together, Skip, talking about the NFL Scouting Combine combined with Pro Day. Those 2 stats that were accumulated indicates that the trio of Adams, Jones, and Cobb are the slowest receivers in the NFL. So Aaron Rodgers clearly has to work with that, which explains why it appeared all evening long the receivers were incapable of gaining any kind of separation. But in the end, you're Aaron Rodgers, and you have to figure it out enough to prevent a 3-game losing streak. I know your special teams gave up the 104-yard return to Amir Abdullah on the kickoff. I know that obviously the defense coming into the game has given up an average of 375 yards over the last 2 games in the air alone. I get all of that, but you're Aaron Rodgers. And you have to figure out a way. You have to find a way, and that's why I think it's apropos that they're going up against Minnesota on the road next week with the division lead on the line, because I want to see what Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers do to respond to this challenge. I know that he's not working with much, but I still expect to see better from him, and I'm not seeing it right now. And right now, he doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as Tom Brady.
Thank you very much for saying that. I got to tell you, yesterday it hit home like tons of bricks to me, Stephen A. Smith, that Aaron Rodgers is not what he used to be. I'm going to state this again just so I drive home the point to everyone who's watching. Aaron Rodgers threw 61 passes yesterday, a career high. 61 times the ball was placed and the game was placed in his hands. And he lost at home to the 1-7 Detroit Lions. The first time the Lions, as Molly pointed out, have won at Lambeau Field since 1991. Just keep that in perspective. It has come to this for that Aaron Rodgers. That's really stunning to me, because obviously we kid back and forth. I have respect for Aaron. I have enough respect that I'm stupefied over this. I find it almost inexplicable that the same Aaron Rodgers, who did often used to be a bad man, is this bad, this consistently bad. He threw some good balls yesterday. He threw some quick, sharp darts. And he threw a bunch of wildly erratic, wildly off-target balls that are so not Aaron Rodgers. All of a sudden, Lambeau Field has become Mr. Rodgers' neighborhood. I never thought I could get away with saying that, but it's true. Mr. Rodgers' neighborhood in Green Bay, Wisconsin. You're kidding me. And Stephen A., you look at the last 2 weeks, he has had late plays that could win or get them in position to win the game. Obviously going for the touchdown at Carolina, and he readily admitted that Aaron Rodgers, I saw something as in a pass rusher, and I got scared. And he did not see Cobb come quickly open. He missed him. He didn't even see him. And then yesterday, as you point out, a blitzer did come free. But the old Aaron Rodgers would have escaped stage right or stage left. He would have bolted the pocket, a la any of the scrambling quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Johnny Manziel, whoever you want to throw in there. Aaron Rodgers had that kind of quickness. He has that kind of quickness. But right now, he's lost his poise, his confidence, and in some cases, flat-out nerve. He just doesn't have the nerve he used to have in the pocket. He's not sure anymore. And again, is his offensive line any worse than Tom Brady's? No, it's not. So there's got to come a point where Aaron gets comfortable with his lack of protection, gets rid of the ball quicker, stays focused on what's happening downfield instead of what's coming into his face. And even on that late play, he sees the blitzer come free. Oh, my God, I got to just lay it up for grabs, basically. And he targeted Davante Adams 21 times yesterday, and he caught only 10 of them. Well, again, that's not good enough. And I get you, not enough foot speed. You know, I've thrown this out half jokingly before. I don't know, maybe Jordy Nelson did help make Aaron Rodgers because he sorely misses him. For a while, he did not miss James Jones because for a while, through like 4 or 5 games, James Jones was leading the NFL in touchdown receptions. All of a sudden, he is MIA. They cannot get the ball to James Jones, maybe because defenses are saying, we're not going to let you get the ball to James Jones anymore. So all of a sudden, Cobb, Davante, James Jones, apparently Richard Rodgers, it's just not enough for Aaron Rodgers.
Well, you're explaining it accurately because here's the bottom line, Skip. If you don't have a Jordy Nelson, then you don't have to worry about the deep threat. So, you know, he facilitated other people being able to get open. These guys clearly can't get open. Davante Adams is targeted 21 times. He only catches 10 receptions. I mean, 10 receptions is decent if you're targeted 11 or 12 times. But when you're targeted 21 times and you only catch 10 passes, something's wrong with that picture. And then it explains also because of what you're highlighting, the lack of production in James Starks filling in for the injured Eddie Lacy, with a guy like Jones, with a guy like Cobb, with Davante Adams struggling to get open, and you got to give the ball to some dude named Perillo, okay? The reality is that it explains the hesitancy with which we're seeing from Aaron Rodgers, holding on the ball just a little bit too long, sometimes getting rid of the ball just a little bit too quickly, because whether it's timing issues or overall trust issues, the fact is something is missing from him with his receiving corps, and the running game ain't helping anything because they're little to no threat. In the end, however, you're Aaron Rodgers. It's incumbent upon you to figure it out, and you haven't yet. And if it's one thing to lose to Denver and Carolina, but if you're going to lose to Detroit too, why the hell should we believe you're going to beat Minnesota, particularly in Minnesota?
I agree.
And by the way, I'm waiting to see whether or not this guy Bennett or whomever he is going to continue to call plays, or is Mike McCarthy going to now take over play calling duty like he had last year? Remember, he gave it up, fired the special teams guy. Special teams have been playing better this year until they gave up that 104-yard kickoff return to Amir Abdullah. So we might see some changes coming in Green Bay. We're not sure yet what they're going to be, but in light of the fact that McCarthy is getting such little production from the offense, I definitely think that is the order of the day. Defensively, what can you do? Don Capers is back there coaching the defense. You still got Clay Matthews and those boys in the lineup. Outside of injuries, guys getting better, I don't know what more you can do if you're Green Bay defensively.
I agree.
But there's a hell of a lot more you can do offensively. I can tell you that much.
I think our main concern is trying to get a W. And I think that's what we're going to continue to keep on fighting.
Not much for me to say about it other than the frustration was.
It's grind. It's hard to do that, but our offensive line was outstanding, and obviously Kirk was the trigger man.
We just got to find a way to get the touchdown right there and give us a little, a little more lead.
We have a chance to intercept the ball down the middle of the field. It's just thrown up, and we don't catch the ball.
It was just a great week. But again, they all count 1-0 this week. But we got a great challenge coming up in Carolina.
Finish the game. Just get the game over with.
You know, they continue to come to work, they continue to push hard, and I think the frustrating part is not seeing the end result being a win.
I feel you, Tom. Try running it. A tough day for everyone in the NFC East except for the Redskins, who played against a struggling Saints defense. Now, according to FPI, the Eagles have the best chance to win the NFC East at 55%, followed by the Giants, 30%, the Redskins, 13%, and the Cowboys have a 2% chance to win the division. Oh, Skip, break this down for us. How do you see it all playing out at this point?
Stephen A. Smith, you can call me a dreamer if you want to. You can call me a typically delusional Cowboy fan, and you might be right. But even as I sit here today, I still believe deep in my heart and into my soul that my team has a shot to win out and steal the NFC East at 9-7 with Tony Romo back in the saddle. I have had this feeling for weeks. I can't explain it, but I'm not going to give up on it. And again, you can look down my Cowboys schedule here. I'll just blurt through it real quick. Stephen A. at Miami with Romo, of course, then Carolina on Thanksgiving, at Washington, at Green Bay, Jets, at Buffalo late in December, and then Washington at home. You could make a case they will lose out. They've lost 7 in a row. They could lose 7 in a row more. 14 straight losses. You could make that case. I can also make the case they'll get on a roll because they have enough talent to win all of the above. And I look at the Eagles right now. I don't know what's going to happen with Sam Bradford. At least he's in the concussion protocol. We know that much. Mark Sanchez is the ultimate accident waiting to happen. And he happened yesterday on the Eagles, right on schedule, right on time. He throws an interception into the end zone that loses that game to the Dolphins at Philadelphia. Your Giants, both Molly, Stephen A., they've got some losable games coming up, and they're not sure who they are because they've blown some late games. So I could see them teetering and falling to 9-7 or even 8-8. And then here come those Redskins. Kirk Cousins has won 4 straight games at home, 9 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. He's 4-1 now at home. He's also 0-4 on the road, and they have some tough road games coming up. Could they teeter from 4-5 and fall back? Sure, Dallas has to play them twice. Can Dallas beat Kirk Cousins twice? I think they can. That's just me. So all of a sudden, by default, I think Dallas with 7 losses could catch the 3 teams now tied with 5 losses. I don't think it's undoable. In fact, I got a feeling, Stephen A. Smith.
Well, you can have a feeling all you want to. You're entitled to it. I wish you all the best because one of those feelings is going to be misery. The Dallas Cowboys have road games at Miami, at Washington, at Green Bay, at Buffalo. They're losing 2 of those 4 games. They're losing 2 of those 4 games. That will give them 9 losses right there. And, oh, by the way, you have a home game, but it's against Carolina. Okay? So, to me, you know, the best case scenario is that the Dallas Cowboys go 5-2 over their next 7 games. That would give them a 7-9 record. I didn't want to say it a bit earlier in the show, but the more I look at the schedule, the more I'm thoroughly convinced it's pretty much over for the Cowboys. Your season is done. I'll say it. I'll go in the opposite direction because I don't see you going 7 straight. I could see you potentially going 5-2, winning a few games that people don't expect you to win, but you're not going undefeated. You're going to lose 2 of these games. I don't know who. You could lose at home to Carolina. You could lose on the road to Green Bay or Washington or Buffalo. It'll be 2 of those 3. You're probably going to end up going 6-10, possibly 7-9. But that's the best to hope for. I think the Giants have the outside shot at winning this. I think the Eagles are still formidable. They can't be sneezed upon because I think that they can put up points and anything could happen. I'm not sold on the Redskins. I know that Kirk Cousins had a field day, but here's all you need to know. According to numerous reports that are out there, if Rob Ryan hasn't been fired yet from New Orleans as their defensive coordinator, he's on the verge of becoming fired. if indeed that is true, because I don't know it to be true, but I imagine it would be and it should be, because as far as I'm concerned, he should have been fired yesterday. He shouldn't even been allowed to take the bus home, for crying out loud. The defense stinks. They're putrid. He's lucky to have a job at this particular moment in time. Had he gotten a haircut and lost some weight, maybe he would have been a head coach. He wouldn't have been in a position where he had to be the defensive coordinator, and as a result, would have been able to disguise some of his flaws, and he might still be employed after the day. But that doesn't appear to be the case. In the end, what it comes down to is that it was against New Orleans. So I'm not getting caught up in Kirk Cousins going 20 for 25, 324 yards, or 514 yards total because Alfred Morris showed up and they decided to give him the ball, okay, along with others. I'm not getting caught up in all of that. The Redskins looked great yesterday, but it was because they were going against the New Orleans Saints, who don't have a defense. They stink, and that's what this really comes down to. So that's where we are. And I'm not going to pick the Redskins. I'm certainly not going to pick the Dallas Cowboys. It's going to come down to the Giants and the Eagles. I don't know which one it's going to be, but I know it ain't going to be from the nation's capital, and it ain't going to be from Big D.
So is it going to be Mark Sanchez and those Eagles? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't know. I can't go there because, I feel the same way about him that you feel. I mean, when he threw the interceptions in the end zone yesterday, I thought about you instantly. I was like, Skip's going to call it the ultimate accident waiting to happen, and he's absolutely right because that's Mark Sanchez. He just finds a way to mess things up. He just can't help himself. I mean, there's just no other way to slice it. And it's interesting to see Chip Kelly, the boy genius that he is. I love how everybody's talking about Chip Kelly, Skip, and they allow him to lean on, the right plays are being called. It's the execution. That is true. I don't even fault him for that. But here's the caveat, Skip. The execution or lack thereof is being committed by players handpicked by him. So if you don't want to blame yourself, Chip Kelly, as the coach, you damn sure need to blame yourself as the de facto GM picking all of these players. It's what you wanted. You got what you wanted. You got what you wanted. So to me, he's definitely culpable in that regard. But the Giants, they're Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. 1 week they're one way, the next week they're the other way. You can't rely on them. Here's what you can rely upon, though. Neither Philadelphia nor New York is going to lose 9 or 10 games this season. That's the difference. Dallas is going to lose 9 or 10 games. Are you sure
about that?
I am sure. Dallas is going to lose 9 or 10 games. Neither one of them will.
Okay, I got a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just ravaged what's left of those New Orleans Saints. Wasn't it just a couple of weeks back that the Saints beat the Giants?
Yeah.
Do I remember that? Or maybe I'm foggy on that one.
Because
oh, they did.
Oh, wait a minute.
They did.
Excuse me. I would appreciate it if you're going to talk to the American public. Don't be a lying politician. Quote me accurately. I said their defense stinks. Their offense scored 52 points. Their defense gave up 49. So that's what I'm saying. They gave up 49. They gave up 37. They gave up 34. I mean, look, every time you turn around, they're giving up 30 plus. This is Rob Ryan's defense. They stink. And I'm not sure it's because of the players. I think it's because of Rob Ryan.
Okay, last question. Haven't we seen Eli Manning struggle in late game situations, managing the clock, managing the situation?
Yes.
I don't know. You trust him? You trust him to win the East? I'm not so sure about that.
I don't trust him to be consistent, but they have such an edge on Dallas, they don't have to be. They've got a 3-game advantage already. Do I see Eli Manning showing up 1 week and losing the next, showing up 1 week or 2 weeks and then losing another game? Sure. I could see the Giants going, what is it? They've got 10 games. I could see them going, winning 9, losing 7, going 4-2 over the next 6 games. I could see the Eagles.
I don't know about that.
I could see the Eagles going, 4-3. Over their next 7 games. I could see that. What I see neither of them doing is going 1-5 or, just something like that. I don't see that happening. And that's what it would take for the Cowboys to catch them.
Well, I could see them both going 8-8, and then Dallas would take its chances.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt, frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
The Panthers remain unbeaten, but everyone is talking about Cam breaking it down in the end zone. The Titans not pleased by Cam's lengthy touchdown dance after his rushing TD with 2:42 to play. That gave the Panthers a 27-10 lead. Here's what Cam had to say about his celebration.
I heard somebody say, we're not going to allow you to do that. But, I'm a firm believer if you don't like me to do it, then don't let me in.
He might have a point. Skip, did you have a problem with Cam's celebration?
Stephen A., I didn't love it. I like his premise, and I've always agreed with the fact that if you don't like it, keep him out of the end zone so he can't do it. But in this case, with this celebration, I just thought it was a little much for a franchise quarterback. Little too long, little too drawn out, little too over the top for me, in my view, of what a franchise quarterback and the leader of a football team should or should not do. Always like the Superman, we talked about it in the past, he's done it when they've been way down in games, but when it's right, when it's on time, the Superman celebration, short, sweet, extremely effective, because it's telling the defense, you can't stop me. I am Superman, especially when it comes to a goal line play in which he launches himself as if he can fly over the goal line and extends the football for the touchdown. Love that, believe in that, but in this case, Stephen A., I've talked so much, we talked so much about the maturation of Cam Newton, his emergence as the leader of this football team, and in this case, I thought it was a little beneath him to celebrate like a sort of a diva wide receiver would, who gets all caught up in the emotion and goes into a more lengthy, drawn-out celebration. So, no big deal, but if you ask me if I have a problem with it, best way I can put it is, I did not love it.
Well, again, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to believe that's absolutely ridiculous. We talk about Psycho Tom. We ain't got no problems with that. As far as I'm concerned, that's Cam Newton. That's a part of his personality. Yeah, it may not have been the Superman. Instead of this time, he's dancing in the end zone. But all of that are remnants of his personality. It's who he is. Nothing about what he did was inconsistent with what he does when he gets into the end zone. It's usually Superman, but every now and then he throws a little twist into the mix and do something extra. And if you don't like it, then stop him from getting in the end zone. Do something about it. But as long as this brother's out there doing what he is doing, leading his team to an undefeated record, top seed in the NFC, balling the way that they ball, I don't want to hear that nonsense from the Tennessee Titans. Win a damn football game. You're 2-7. En route to another anemic, underachieving, disappointing season where you're robbing folks in Nashville, Tennessee, and in the state of Tennessee of their money. Now, it may not affect them as much as it affects other people because there's no state income tax there in the state of Tennessee. So the money that you end up losing there ain't going to hurt as much, ain't going to pinch you as much as if you were living in New York and certainly California. But nevertheless, the point is that either way you slice it, they brought it on themselves because they couldn't stop them, because they couldn't keep them out of the end zone, because they couldn't handle their business, as has been the case with numerous franchises, whether it's Buffalo, Miami, Indy, or whatever. They find ways to lose football games in Tennessee, whether Marcus Mariota is quarterbacking them or not, whether Ken Wisenhunt is coaching them or not. Now they got Mike Mularkey. He's 1-1 as a head coach. Congratulations. In the end, what it comes down to is that Cam Newton and his personality and his willingness to showcase and display and all of that other stuff does not deserve to be criticized and excoriated on this show because his style, his flair, what he decides to do is not something that vibes with Skip Bayless. If Tom Brady was Psycho Tom and he carried it on a few seconds a little bit longer than we are accustomed to seeing, I don't think you would have been complaining then. I think you would have said, yo, Tennessee, why don't you do something about it? It ain't his fault that he's so much better than you. Well, if it applies to Tom Brady, it applies to Cam Newton. Even though Cam Newton isn't Tom Brady, even though he doesn't have those numbers, they do have the same record. Every game they've played has ended up with a win, and none of them have ended up with a loss. They're both undefeated at 9-0 this year. They're doing their thing. Tom Brady, a.k.a. Psycho Tom, has his personality, and Cam Newton has his. A matter of fact, let me say for the record, I'd much rather prefer Cam Newton's style. I think he's got a little better rhythm. I think the flair looks a little bit better. So I actually like his celebration in the end zone far more than I like Tom Brady. I'm just saying. We all got our style preferences. Cam Newton got, he's a brother, got a little bit different style to him than Psycho Tom. You like your ways? I like mine. I see no problem with Cam Newton whatsoever. I actually liked it.
Okay, first of all, I did not excoriate Cam Newton in what I just said. I said I did not love it for the leader and franchise quarterback of a football team to go into that extended of a celebration that seemed almost choreographed. Tom Brady has no idea what he's doing on the football field after he throws a touchdown pass.
Really?
When he's out of his mind. He is Psycho Tom.
Really?
And he's not doing anything that's choreographed. He's running down and he is head-butting. He is helmet-butting with Rob Gronkowski in the end zone. That's
Tom Brady
just
has no
raw
idea.
emotion.
Tom Brady's just raw emotion. He has absolutely no idea. But you treat Cam Newton like he went to a dance class, got a dance teacher to choreograph a move for him to practice in the end zone. How come he can't be doing it extemporaneously? How come Cam Newton? Let me tell you something, Skip. There are a few brothers that know how to step into the end zone on the dance floor, wherever the case, and be very impromptu, off the cuff, and look like they practiced it for ages, but they didn't have to because they just got that kind of flair and flow and rhythm into their game. But Tom Brady, oh my goodness, he didn't know. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know he's headbutting somebody. He doesn't know he's pumping his. Oh, he doesn't know, really. He doesn't know. Okay, Skip. All right, no problem. He doesn't know.
Johnny Manziel threw for a career-high 372 yards in the Browns' 30-9 loss to the Steelers. Manziel had a career-high 53 dropbacks Sunday and was sacked on 6 of them, twice as many sacks as his previous single-game career high. Skip, did Manziel earn the starting job?
Stephen A, Molly, I'll say no. If you're asking me, does Johnny give them a better chance to win next week and the next? Better than Josh McCown? I'll say no to that. I do think that Johnny played the best as a pro. I've seen him yesterday. Those were impressive yards. Now, a lot of them came in garbage time. A lot of them came with the game out of reach. And I didn't love the 6 sacks. I didn't love the interception that he threw on the run. But in general, I saw him throw with velocity and confidence and accuracy I have not seen consistently from Johnny until yesterday. But Mike Peyton obviously is on the hot seat. If he's fighting for his job and he didn't even want to draft Johnny Manziel, clearly he wants to stay with Josh McCown because he gives him a little better chance to win a couple of more games down the stretch. But if this organization wants to figure out what Johnny is or is not, clearly if you're playing for the future, you should go with Johnny now. If you want to win games, that may not be the way to go. Your thoughts?
Well, see, Skip, here's my thing. I'm of the mindset that I think that he's earned it from this respect. You brought Josh McCown in fully willing to recognize that he wasn't the future. And if he's not the future and you're 2-8 and you're not going to the postseason, isn't it time to find out whether or not Johnny Manziel is the guy? It's time to find that out once and for all. And even though I totally understand where Mike Peyton is coming from, because he should be frustrated. Let's be fair to Mike Peyton here. He's been dealt an unfair hand. Because even though you like Johnny Manziel, he didn't. And if he didn't, and he's the coach, and he had the GM siding with him, then the owner should not have stepped in and forced football guys that he assigned to run his football team to do things they didn't want to do. He should let them do what they want to do and then judge them accordingly and, if necessary, harshly. That's what he should have done. And that's my problem more so than anything else. I think Johnny Manziel's a playmaker. That's no doubt. But, Skip, here's the thing. As I look at Johnny Manziel's numbers, He's completing 59% of his passes this year, okay? Obviously, yesterday he looked better than he has. And even though he hasn't looked great, and there's no 3-step, 4-step, 5-step drops where it's calling for him to be the conventional, prototypical quarterback, the fact of the matter is, Skip, he has shown that he has put in some work. And he has improved from what we saw last year. So if that's the reality, and you're 2-8, why not just find out once and for all and get this circus atmosphere over with? We're going to give you the last 6 games to show us who you are, and we'll decide based off of that whether you will be here or not. That's where he has earned the starting nod, so the Cleveland Browns can move in a forward direction as opposed to torturing themselves and their fan base by this back and forth nonsense week to week. 6 games for Johnny Manziel is more than enough right now to find out whether or not he should be on this roster come next year.
And by the way, I'm not a Mike Peyton fan. I remain a Johnny fan. So going forward, do I think Johnny could be more valuable to this franchise than Mike Peyton? Yes. Do I think Mike Peyton could be fired after this year? I'll be surprised if he's back next year. So you're exactly right. It would behoove the owner, Jimmy Haslam, to say, okay, that's enough of this. Let's just play Johnny and see what happens.
How about those Bears winning 2 straight on the road? Stephen A., what'd you think of Cuddy, my boy?
Oh, my Lord, as much as I hate to admit it, he's actually looking good right now. Has a quarterback rating of 95, a QBR of 68, thrown 13 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions in his 8 games. I am willing to go far to say this. Chicago could actually finish 8-8, and I think that you could actually get rid of the barricades, and I would say that Jay Cutler actually should be allowed in the streets of Chicago right now. Not bad.
Jay Cutler and Tony Romo will become your worst nightmares.
I wouldn't go that far. Not that far.
All right, guys, travel safe. Great one. As always, Bengals, Texans tonight on ESPN. Thank you so much for hanging with us.
Hey gamers, before you drop your hard-earned cash on every new game you see, why not try games before you buy them? At Redbox, rent all the hottest titles, like Star Wars Battlefront for just $3 a night. Download the app or visit redbox.com to find a location near you. Terms and conditions apply. See redbox.com for details.